Big fluff.
I care about their safety just as much as you do.
Are you sure about that? Because we're taking bigger and bigger risks. And for what? Please, tell me it's not your ego. Being on the cover of magazines, getting a medal from the president. You like it, don't you?
As opposed to being hunted and despised, well, actually I do. It's all just a means to an end, Raven.
What end is that?
Keeping us safe. You should understand better than anyone that we're only ever one bad day away from them starting to see us as the enemy again.
So what? We wear matching costumes and smile in pictures to make everyone feel safe?
That is a small price to pay for keeping the peace.
By risking our people to save theirs.
Yes.
It's funny. I can't actually remember the last time you were the one risking something. And by the way, the women are always saving the men around here. You might want to think about changing the name to ex-women.
Hey everybody, I'm Joel Murphy.
And I'm Andy McIntyre.
And this has been a technological nightmare, but it's also Silver Linings Playback. The podcast. Where we watch maligned movies and we find their silver linings. I know how to do this.
Yeah, you do. You're a pro. And it is week 3, 4, something like that. Week 4 of X-Men month. Because there's 5 Mondays in July, and this is the 4th Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And we watch the essentially final installment of this X-Men group and the second attempt at Dark Phoenix. We started with a stab at Dark Phoenix, and now we're to another stab at Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix.
Dark Phoenix, the movie that follows Apocalypse. Because again,
yes.
we've this month we've watched The Last Stand and Apocalypse, but now we're at the last one, Dark Phoenix. They all make sense, the titles, when you really think about them.
Yes, we had The Last Stand. Then we had Origins, which was the 5th movie made in this franchise. Or no, 4th movie.
Yeah.
4th movie. And then we did Apocalypse, which sounds like it'd be the end. And now we're doing Dark Phoenix, which was kind of the end but there's like the spin-off New Mutants that we're going to do next week.
Yeah, which led to a very successful and still long-running franchise.
Yes. Yes, it did.
Mm-hmm. God bless them. But that's for next week.
Bastards.
That's next week's discussion. Here we're here to talk about X-Women : Dark Phoenix.
Yes. Because it's the women that are always saving the men's asses. And I mean, Mystique, not very powerful, but Jean Grey and Storm, arguably the 2 most powerful X-Men.
But I agree with that. Storm is the most powerful X-Men. And then, according to The Last Stand, Jean Grey is the only Class 5 mutant that Charles Xavier, who no longer exists, has ever met.
Right.
But that statement is not true. Just for whatever it's worth. The women in this movie, and again, it's not a judgment of the women of the X-Men, who I think are better, by and large, a part of the team than the men, but just canonically in this series, Mystique caused the dystopian future that they had to fix. Jean Grey murdered everyone. Storm's never done anything wrong in her life, and she's perfect. But she's criminally underused in this movie. So,
arguably even more so than the previous movie.
Well, in the previous movie, we talked about that, where she plays a villain and then gets no redemption arc. In this movie, she's just kind of there. I think, doesn't she put ice cubes in someone's drink at one point?
Probably.
Yeah, I think that's her biggest contribution.
Yeah, it's and Storm, not only that, but Storm has really easy powers to make look cool on a big screen.
She does weather. They literally it's out by now, a new Twisters movie. That's just tornadoes. And that's
stay tuned for January when we talk about Twisters.
Yeah. Tornado took your father. Doesn't have to take you too. Thank you.
Well done.
Rest in peace, Bill Paxton.
Oh, Bill Pullman. He's the best. Anyways. But yeah, no, Storm, like her powers, because like telepathic powers always look stupid.
Well, and also because they're all doing this in these movies now. They didn't do it in the first time around, but this time.
That time was more of like a.
I think that's
Jean
better.
Grey did a lot of this.
It's better. I think it's better. It's more dramatic. She's like in a box of her powers, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, this is the next attempt at the Dark Phoenix saga, and nailed it. No notes.
Let's dig a little deeper here.
Should we?
Because we've done it twice, right? They took two, and I'll say this. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Took them 3 tries to get Wolverine, and Wolverine feels like a slam dunk. So.
I mean, you could argue it took 5 tries if you include the 2 X-Men movies.
He's fine in the X-Men movies. I'm saying
Fair.
as a standalone property, they were like, you know who people love and who they'd love to see a standalone adventure of? Wolverine. And that took them 3 tries to make good. So
yeah, that's true. The first try is start to finish garbage. The second try, 2/3 of a good movie. And Logan is great.
Right. So by that logic, I do believe that they should make a 3rd Dark Phoenix movie and it'll be good. And
I think that's how the MCU X-Men should start right out the gate.
We don't know the people. It's all new actors. We don't recognize
everything
any
new.
of them. And they immediately
all
just
unknowns.
all unknowns. And they immediately jump us into Jean Grey as the Dark Phoenix. Yeah. So
and play it like everybody knows what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
No exposition dumps, nothing.
So, but let's compare and contrast because we started the month with the first Dark Phoenix. Would you say, which do you think is better? Okay, I'm going to ask this. This is a multi-tiered question. What do you think is a better movie? What do you think is a better adaptation of Dark Phoenix? And just like, I guess we'll start there.
All right. So we've talked almost every week about is Last Stand the best movie we're going to watch this month? And I think so far it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be hard pressed to argue that anything was better.
So that's the first question. I think that Last Stand is a better movie than this.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
And I think that neither are good adaptations. This inches closer to the comic book storyline, but still unnecessarily changes things.
I'd say it more than inches. Like, that's the only part I disagree. I think it starts pretty close to the comic book. And in fact, I was somewhat surprised that they went to space because I didn't expect that in this franchise. But definitely it starts with the really close to the storyline. And so you get all that. They go to space. The Phoenix energy takes over. Jean Grey. All of that infinitely better than the garbage that we get in X-Men United, where we're told that Charles Xavier is to blame, that he essentially created the Dark Phoenix persona by walling off her brain and making
that
her,
because she didn't have the ability to control her powers. Professor Xavier put in some mental blocks so that she could function as a human.
Right. So better already to discard that. But then the thing that they do in this movie that I think is so perplexing is you had the ability to then continue to stay close to the original story because you could have introduced the Hellfire Club, which we
reintroduced it really because the Hellfire Club was in First Class.
Yes. So, right. So the Hellfire Club has been alluded to. Emma Frost has been introduced as a character. That's all integral to the thing. And the part that they get rid of is that where they find out that she has these powers and they have a guy who also does telekinesis who
exploits her,
who exploits her by putting her, like, making her believe she's living in this fantasy world and she's helping him, but actually she's just doing evil stuff. But he messes with her mind to put her in an alternate reality.
Yeah.
All of that could have been done.
And you even have amazing actress Jessica Chastain in a blonde wig, and there's no reason she couldn't have been this world's Emma Frost.
Well, isn't that who January Jones played?
It is who January Jones played. Yes.
Yeah. So we could have just brought back January Jones.
Could have just brought back January Jones.
Yeah. So either way, the character exists. They've definitely recast people, so they could recast her if they wanted to. If January Jones refused to come back for whatever reason. But yeah, like, you could have had that character. That would have worked a lot better. And instead, Jessica Chastain plays an alien that was supposed to be
not a Skrull.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the Skrulls, and then they had two bits of very unfortunate for them timing, which is that this movie came out after Infinity War and around the time of Captain Marvel, and also as Fox was being sold to Disney. And so all of that meant that they had planned to do Skrulls, and then once the Disney Marvel people realized that, they were like, this is way too close to Captain Marvel, which it is way too close to Captain Marvel. So they had to change a bunch of stuff, but it's a bunch of stuff that they shouldn't have had to change because they never should have done any of this in the first place if they were doing Dark Phoenix.
Right, because one of the reasons, like, that in the comics that people are clued into how dangerous Jean Grey is as the Dark Phoenix is that she wipes out a planet populated by the Dabari, not the Chitauri, who are the name of the Skrulls in the Ultimate Comics universe. We both have wives. Anyways. So they have Jean Grey, have Jessica Chastain play. They name the alien species that Jessica Chastain is the Dabari, and they didn't need to.
And then don't destroy their planet. No, like,
but the Dabari are trying to harness the Phoenix Force. Like, I agree full stop that it would have been too much to try to include the Shi'ar in all of this. Like,
yeah,
it took many episodes of the comics and the cartoon and all that to kind of introduce the cosmic world and do all that. You could probably do that more easily in the MCU because the cosmic world exists. But
yeah, well, and I think a problem that they have with Dark Phoenix that they've yet to address in either swing is that, so the character in the comics, like you said, she like flies around and doesn't she eat a star that then destroys their planet or whatever,
something like that, power.
Yeah. But she does she destroys an entire planet's population, which is like, that's what Thanos does. Like, it's super evil, but it's evil in a different planet. And so all of her friends are like, hey, but she's Jean Grey, like, she didn't mean it. And like, the people affected don't care, obviously. And I think the problem that they've had is because once you remove that part of it, well, in X-Men The Last Stand, she's just killing her friends. And in this one, she accidentally kills, well, I mean, she manslaughters, let's say, Mystique. And, you know, that's bad, but it's not like in the X-Men The Last Stand, she's just killing everyone. She kills Cyclops off screen, you know.
In the first reel.
And so this is better than that, but it also removes, there's a problem of what Dark Phoenix can actually do in a grounded, non-cosmic comic book universe that gives it stakes, but isn't just her killing all her friends.
Right, because you kind of have to, part of the power of the story is that you have the X-Men defending Jean, but also kind of knowing that the Dark Phoenix is a bad thing.
Right.
And it's like they're wrestling with the morality of that.
And then in the comics, the core of the story is that obviously Cyclops is in love with her and would do anything to protect her. But then Jean herself realizes that this is not sustainable. So she causes her own death to happen. Like she takes herself out basically to protect everyone. And they don't do that really, and I would argue that's where The Last Stand does a better job of. I do like Wolverine.
Like at the end of X2 or Wolverine coming up and killing her at the end of Last Stand?
Wolverine killing her at the end of Last Stand.
Okay.
I think is the right thing to do. And I do agree with you too, that X2's ending, she's sacrificing herself preemptively to become the Phoenix. I think that all worked fine, and her locking everyone out to do it. All of that was well done. I think that's a good way to do the Phoenix, that they had just said that something was in the water with her. We talked about this when we did that episode. We don't need to relitigate that part, but like, yeah, I think all that could have worked. I think a big problem here is you don't have Wolverine because, as I read by multiple people, they thought obviously it'd be weird. Hugh Jackman is significantly older than Sophie Turner, so it would just, optics would be bizarre for him to be in love with her. And then they have Cyclops, but this Jean Grey and Cyclops relationship does not feel weighty enough. They've barely committed to it in these movies.
Because they didn't even, like, if you had made their romance a more central plot of Apocalypse, or at least it been a B story, instead of just like, oh, that girl I met when I was blindfolded, she's hot. What?
Right.
It was dumb and bad. And so you don't, and just how underdeveloped all of the young X-Men are carrying over into this movie, and they're supposed to be the stars of this movie. Like, you don't care about anybody. But luckily the actors didn't care either, so it all fits.
Yeah, no, totally. But yeah, it's kind of relying on us to be like, well, we care about their relationship because of the comics, but it's not there on screen. Yeah, it just, none of it really works. I think that, and again, I think that's the weirdest thing besides that is, and this Simon Kinberg, like, wrote a lot of these movies, if probably the majority of these movies.
Bulk of the series, dude.
Thank you. And, then he found this stranger in the Alps, and he seemed to get confused as to how to do it. But he, for some reason in this movie, every conflict feels completely contrived and unearned. And everything that happens, it felt so weird because we start from the idea that the X-Men are universally beloved. They regularly,
they're
like
heroes.
They're heroes. Charles Xavier is a celebrity who's friends with the president. And that's a lot of what Raven / Mystique is upset about him with, is that she feels like he's lost his way. But they're all, nobody is freaked out. Like, all of the prejudice that is the core of the X-Men story is gone now. People just love them because of the one thing they changed in the past. They're super great now, and everybody loves them. And then once all this stuff starts happening, it immediately swings the other way, and everybody hates them again.
I was like, oh no, we were wrong to like these people.
And then all the stuff with Mystique, like, is, it swings back and forth. They do it with Magneto, where they have him be off the grid and he doesn't know that Mystique is dead. And he kind of like shelters Jean Grey for a bit and then tells her she has to leave just because she's putting the land where he's living in jeopardy. And then once she leaves, then he finds out that she killed Mystique and is like, I'm going to murder her. And it, like, so everything is just these like reactionary, 0 to, 60 turns.
And I feel it's important to point out for the comic book nerds out there, the land that Magneto lives on is Genosha.
Oh, right.
Which is like one of the most important places in X-Men lore. And I don't even know if they say the name Genosha, like it's in the credit. It's like in probably just the script and never said aloud. And it looks like a tiny island in Lake Michigan with like 30 people living on it. Not like this paradise island that is large enough to sustain a thriving population.
No, it's smaller than what's left of like New Asgard in after Endgame. Like it is definitely
it is barely a commune.
No, there are 10 people living there for sure.
Yeah.
And it is just like like some property that they bought. They bought a few acres of land.
Yeah, it is a tiny island in Lake Michigan. That is Genosha.
Yeah. No, I don't even know if I knew that it was Genosha, which is why I didn't say it. So there you go.
That's why it's important to bring up, because they flubbed that badly.
Yeah, which is just don't even do that then.
Yeah,
and,
don't.
And there's also, I mean, Magneto's been such a yo-yo of a character anyway at this point. And so like it's just that feels tired at this point, like how they've used him, because he just, I mean, in Apocalypse, he was pretty evil for most of the movie, and then they brought him back. And in this movie, he's actually very reasonable, and he doesn't have a loved one die to motivate him. Oh, no, he does.
Well, it does Raven.
He does. I was going to say he doesn't this time, but no, he actually does. That's his only motivation, is if his loved ones are killed, and then he will immediately.
Because they made it pretty clear that they hooked up.
Oh, they definitely hooked up. I mean, you're telling me that a character that looks like Jennifer Lawrence and a character that looked like Michael Fassbender, both of whom are in love with James McAvoy, didn't like just act that out one night? Like, come on.
Oh, 100%.
She can turn into James McAvoy, and clearly Magneto is in love with them. So like that happened.
Yeah, that happened.
And if you think it didn't, grow up.
Yeah, grow the F up.
Come on. You're telling me that Mystique doesn't turn herself into Charles Xavier when she has sex with Magneto, and that's canon to these films. Come on.
Yeah. Where have you been?
Where's that "this will change the way you watch these movies" video?
We just did it, I think.
I think so. Let's clip that out and just, this will change the way you watch the X-Men films. Actually, but it shouldn't change the way you watch them, because if you watch these movies and don't think that it's a love story between Professor X and Magneto, then you've gotten a different thing than I have from that's like the one consistent in every movie is I'm like, these two men love each other and they should kiss.
They should definitely kiss.
Yeah.
So you're welcome, internet, for having the bravery to talk about this. Everyone's keeping it under wraps, but yeah, it's so obvious. Maybe it's so obvious that we felt we didn't need to talk about it, but we're talking about it.
And I'm pretty sure if you reached out to Patrick Stewart and, asked him, he'd also confirm it.
Yeah. Oh, I think that goes without saying.
Yeah.
Because Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen have probably the most platonic love relationship of any two actors in the world.
I will say my mom sincerely thought they were a couple, and I actually didn't want to correct her.
Don't.
Yeah.
She should think that forever.
Yeah, because she saw like it was like a pride thing that they were both at, and she was like, "Oh, they're dating," and I was like, "Yep, mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes, they are.
Yeah, correct."
Yeah, and there's no reason to dissuade them of that, to anyone of that. If that's your headcanon, let it be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
and
sure.
So, and I think that Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart would be fine with you thinking that.
I'm really fighting the urge to do another. Like, you're gonna tell me that those two men have never.
I don't know. I watched them perform on Broadway and Waiting for Godot. You could feel it.
Yeah. I mean, how much time do they have to kill while they were waiting for Godot? You know, what are they gonna do to kill that time?
I mean, I've watched countless high school drama productions where the two romantic leads were actually dating, and the sexual chemistry was much more palpable with Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart.
That sounds right. Also, I think he's on the mend. He's doing well, but also just shout out to Ian McKellen, who had a very terrifying stage accident recently.
Yeah.
And so I hope he's doing well, of course.
Yes. Because we know you're listening. So we shout out and hope you're doing better.
He's a big fan.
Big fan.
He reaches out all the time, especially when we talk about his movies.
Yes.
He gets really excited.
Which only the X-Men movies that we've talked about with him. So,
well, wait till those hobbits come around.
Yeah, it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
No one wants to be on this set. I think that's important to state, that there's not a single actor in this movie who seems like they want to be doing this movie.
yeah, everybody and the weird thing is everybody seemed like they wanted to do it for Simon, who's directing his very first movie.
Yeah, I think like my vibe is, Bryan Singer it makes good movies, but is a horrible person who has absolutely toxic sets. And obviously Ratner makes bad movies and has toxic sets. So I think, yeah, these people, they all like Simon. Chastain said that's why she did it, was for him because she's a big fan. I think they all really wanted to support him, and they all really wanted to believe like it's going to be different this time. It's going to be good because we're working with a good guy and he's been writing all these. So this one's going to be great. And I think they got on set and they went, oh no. And they all just gave up.
I think you're absolutely right with that. Yeah, I think that it's like, well, we'll just read the lines.
I mean, we're here now, and this is definitely the end. So let's just enjoy it while we can. And Jennifer Lawrence had the fortune of dying in the first act, so she got out. Also, I mean, I guess we got to talk about the fact, too, that, we obviously touched on it with Apocalypse of unequivocally in Days of Future Past, the best thing that you get is the Quicksilver scene. You get this amazing, we've never seen it before, really cool sequence. Days of Future Past has one that it's sort of a, playing the hits. Like it's not markedly different, but it's still really fun. This one, they don't do the technology right. So they kind of tee it up like they're gonna do a sequence, but then Simon Kinberg doesn't shoot it the same way. So, and it doesn't have the pop song. And so it doesn't hit. And then he's just taken out by Phoenix and then he's out of the movie.
Yeah. And like, you're going to tell me that doing that scene to What's Up by Four Non Blondes wouldn't have been the most amazing thing ever.
That would have been in the silver linings category for sure. I don't know.
If he's running around and like, and I said, hey, yeah, it'd be great.
I said, hey,
what's going on?
It is better now.
I mean, yeah.
Because
they did Time in a Bottle, and was it Sweet Dreams and in Apocalypse?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you do another 90s, you do a 90s hit. Like, that should have been a layup to do that.
It feels antagonistic to us, the audience, to not give us that, especially if he's going to be out of the movie, because just give him that moment and then let him peace out.
I feel like throughout the filming of this movie, like just each week was, and that's a wrap on this character, and that's a wrap on this character. And it just kept running through the cast until everyone was gone.
Do you think they were all just calling their agent, like, get me out of here? Come on, make them rewrite it. No, I think it would add a lot of weight to the movie if Raven just dies right now, like today, and then I'm gone. I'm off the set. Come on, make it happen.
Their argument is like, look, do you see how much Harrison Ford hates Star Wars until they let him die? I don't want to hate X-Men. Let me die.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Sophie Turner's like, what if it wasn't the Dark Phoenix saga? Is that too late? Can we do a different one?
What if we did the Legacy virus or
so it's like
or Executioner song.
I think that is the thing where it's just like, sometimes you watch a movie and you just like, I'll give a great example of like the Fall Guy that came out recently. Not a life-changing movie. It kind of came and went, but I sat down to watch that movie and I immediately went, I'm in good hands. I watched it in the theater and I enjoyed it while I was watching. And it was just like, this is a fun ride. It's a fun ride. And it's just like, they knew what I wanted. They're delivering it. This is the opposite of that. Like, I sat down to watch this and I'm like, within 5 minutes, just thinking, oh no, I'm in bad hands and this is not going to be good.
This isn't going to be good.
Yeah. And you just know it. And then you're locked in and it's not good.
And that's why we're talking about it. And we'll not talk about the Fall Guy because that was super fun.
No, we should never. I swear to God, if when we're preparing for January, if I see the Fall Guy pop up on those lists, I'm going to get angry because it's a perfectly cromulent movie.
It really is. It's light and fun, and if it creates more Robert Urich fans, then all the better.
Alas, poor Urich. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah, but I don't know. So here we are. Like we said, I mean, I think we've thoroughly summed up the problems with this movie. But I think before we attempt to pivot, like we said, next week we're going to do New Mutants, which is its own standalone thing. Which I did read was they were originally going to do crossover stuff, and then they just bailed on it. Like once they started making this and knew this was going to be bad, they were just like, nah, we don't need to worry about the crossover. No. It's not going to happen. But this is the end of the X-Men franchise. And I do feel like we've been doing this whole month. We should take a moment. We were doing all of this because the real end, the official, I mean, I guess nothing's really done now in modern American movies where every last drop of blood from every stone will be squeezed out. But it does seem like that sort of the plot of Deadpool and Wolverine and the point of it is to officially put a bow on this cinematic universe, that Deadpool, the meta character, seems aware of the fact that his universe is going away. It's all going to be absorbed into Marvel. And so let's take a moment. This is the end. What do we think of the X-Men franchise? We've obviously covered a lot of it this month.
Yeah. The X-Men were my favorite comic growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to start there. They were like, I bought any book in the X universe when I was like in my big comic buying stage in like my like preteens to teenage years, which when I was reading a lot of comics, so I bought X-Men books. They were my favorite, like by a significant margin. So I love the X-Men. I can remember when I heard the news that X-Men was being made into a movie and they did indeed cast Patrick Stewart. I was like, oh, I'm not worried. Mm-hmm. And then when I heard it was being directed by Bryan Singer, who has made one of my all-time favorite movies, Usual Suspects, I'm like, all right, this is going to be great. And the movie was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then X2, I really love, I think is phenomenal. Possibly still my favorite in the whole series.
I think it is my favorite. Yeah, I think at the beginning of the month might have said it was the best. I don't know if it's the best because I think that probably is Days of Future Past, but I think X2 is my favorite for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, Logan might actually be the best movie.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
Because I feel like you could watch Logan knowing nothing and it holds up on its own weight pretty well.
Well, yeah, because it's just that kind of archetypical, I mean, they just remade Shane essentially, but yeah, Shane, Man on Fire, The Professional, it's in that
Book
genre.
of Eli. Yeah.
Old rundown man must get child to safety before dying.
Right.
Movie. We've seen a lot of those. Yeah. Yeah. Was Shane the first? I don't even know. Kurosawa probably did it first if we really look back,
probably. But yeah, so, but I love X2. I love Days of Future Past. I love the two Deadpool movies. And then the rest are of varying degrees of quality.
Yes. And some of them very bad and some of them okay. Like the Wolverine is fine. Yeah. But that's also something nice about that, like one of the things the MCU kind of did was there's sort of the Mac versus the PC of movies where it's like, what a Mac is. I know what an iPhone is, and an iPhone is always going to be an iPhone. A Marvel movie is always a Marvel movie. There's very little variation. Sometimes they're better than others, but it's kind of nice how messy this franchise was, that it's like, you can't even trust Singer's good, so all the Singer ones are going to be good or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and then they bring Ratner in, and obviously that's going to be bad. And then it's like, well, maybe things will be better with Simon Kinberg, and they're not. So it's just like, it's a real roll of the dice every time.
Like, yeah, we'll have Matthew Vaughn make one. That'll be good.
And it was.
Yeah. And then let's bring Bryan Singer back. This can't go poorly. And it went well once and then badly a second time.
Yep. And
yeah, I don't know. Because there's 12 movies in this X-verse, essentially?
I mean, I'm not going to do the math, so I'll take your word for it.
10, I think.
Okay.
We'll go with 10.
Let's go with 10.
Let's go with 10. And, I think you could even make the argument that there's one of the movies is a 1 out of 10 and one of the movies is a 10 out of 10, and there's every level in between.
That's probably true. I think that's true. But it was a fun ride. I'll say, I think I kind of said this a little bit last week, but it's like I have much more of an emotional attachment to the original cast, I think, for a number of reasons. The new cast, like, they're more hit or miss for me. Fassbender, I think, is fantastic.
Yeah, Fassbender's great. McAvoy's fine.
Yeah. I liked him. If we're about ready to pivot, I think this was the most Charles Xavier he felt. So that was good.
Yeah, I think that's a good note. I think as we're pivoting, we can focus on the good of this. I think this might be the worst one.
I think it is.
It's this or Origins.
Well, it's this or Origins, and I think the reason that this is the worst one is because I nothing this movie. Like, Origins is again, it gave us Deadpool and Wolverine because of how dumb Deadpool is in there. It gave us that great boxing scene that we both loved so much.
Flawless, no notes.
But this
started the acting career of Will.i.am.
Obviously, yeah, Will.i.am's thriving
Academy Award winner Will.i.am.
Yeah, exactly.
Multi BAFTA winning Will.i.am.
Yep. And it's a dumb movie, but it's memorably dumb.
Memorably dumb.
And you get Liev Schreiber. Like, here's the thing. If you told me I had to watch either that again or this again, I'd unequivocally pick that.
100 times out of 100. Yeah. This movie is the one I want to watch again the least.
No, there's nothing to rewatch about it. It's barely a movie. I think that's really where I land on it. Of like, it checks the boxes of a movie, but I'm not convinced that
there are pictures that move.
Yeah, there are moving images and sound, and there are people saying lines.
It sure is a talkie.
Yeah, it's a talkie, and you can't take that away from it.
You cannot deny the fact that this was a talkie.
But if you care about the Dark Phoenix saga, read the comics, and if you don't feel like reading the comics, watch the X-Men cartoon that came out the year that this is set. You can just watch that instead.
Yep.
And yeah, don't watch this at all. There's no reason. Even if you want a movie version of it, I would still recommend The Last Stand because it's breezier to watch.
It is breezier. It has that awesome Golden Gate Bridge fight.
Juggernaut bitch. You got Juggernaut bitch.
You got Vinnie Jones.
Yeah, you got Vinnie Jones, which is value added to anything that he shows up in. So this movie, there's no reason for it to exist. Nobody wants to be in it. It's not good, and you shouldn't watch it. I think those are the bullet points.
Yes. So we did it.
No, but we have to find silver linings. We're still going to find silver linings.
Fassbender's great. He acted in a much better series than the series he acted in.
I can sit here and when we're in the maligning portion, I'll tell you all the reasons that I'm like, what is this Fassbender turn? It's stupid. But when you watch him do it, you believe it in the moment because he's just that good of an actor. And also every time he's like, I'm going to kill everyone. You're like, yeah, okay. Sure. I get it.
Whatever you say, Michael.
Right. Exactly. I can't stay mad at this guy. You
stare
get
me with those steely blues a little bit more.
It actually, I think that he, maybe even more than Ian McKellen, like really sells you on Magneto's, why Xavier always comes back to him, where you're like, I can't
stay mad at you.
I mean, you did the genocide, but buddy, come on, you didn't mean it.
Well, and that's like, Ian McKellen's a great actor. I still don't know that he's a great choice for Magneto.
He plays him very dour. Like but it kind of works for like that.
It works for the movie, but I think like if like the original X-Men movies, I don't think I would say the character that's least comic accurate in like those first two movies might even be Magneto.
Can we also talk about the fact this is a silver lining for this series, but I do want to mention it because I have been rewatching all of them, even if the ones that we haven't been talking about. I do love that Wolverine is absolutely has never gotten a win on Magneto in a single one of these movies. And the funny thing nor should he. But here's the funniest part. So in most of the movies, it's immediately clear why, because I think in the comics they've done this differently, or at least retconned it or whatever. And I think maybe adamantium can't be controlled, whatever, nerds. We all get it. I think there are different variations. In the movies, though, it is very clear his metal can be controlled by Magneto. So
adamantium is a magnetic metal, yes.
And so all of his body is covered in a thing that Magneto can control. So obviously he can't do anything. Yeah, and he just did it. He just does this.
Just kind of flicks his hand away.
But watching, I think it's Days of Future. Yeah, it's Days of Future Past, where so Wolverine doesn't have the adamantium yet. He just has bone claws. He still goes up against Magneto and it loses within 5 seconds, where Magneto just takes every piece of available metal around him, wraps him up in it, and throws him to the bottom of a lake or whatever.
just impales him with several pieces of rebar and drops him in a lake.
Yeah, or wherever. It's the Potomac, I guess. Like,
no, it is Potomac. It is the Potomac,
yeah. Yeah, because they're in DC. So I was very curious in that movie, and I was glad the newscast clarified it for me that he picks up RFK Stadium and floats it above everyone. These are just the fun DC references. I don't know how much that stadium actually looked like RFK, but whatever.
Yeah, no one cares.
No.
Yeah. So, but anyways, back to actual silver linings. Fassbender's great, man. I think McAvoy did he felt the most like Charles, and I thought his take on Charles made more sense here.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things working for him in this movie, in that, and to be clear, he always seemed like he was willing to shave his head. He shaved his head for a bunch of movies. I think he would be willing to be bald and in the wheelchair, but I think the people at Fox were like, well, we got McAvoy. He's got to have hair and walk around. Like,
that head of hair, we're going to shave it? Come on.
So they really slow played all that. But this movie, he's bald and in the wheelchair. That helps. But I also do think everything we were saying is as sort of convoluted as Raven's arguments are towards him about ex-women. I think this version of Charles Xavier feels right, because we've seen him like overly optimistic and overly do-gooder, and we've seen him kind of broken and given up in various versions of this, but this is the one that feels dialed into Xavier as I see him, which is like, he cares. At the end of the day, he's an optimist, but he's also kind of cold and difficult to deal with. Yeah.
No, I think that's very accurate, and I think it was really good.
And probably not telling the X-Men information that they need. And like that's the thing. Do you watch the cartoons and stuff, or you read the comics? And a lot of times they're in a situation because he just didn't tell them some piece of information that they need.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, other than that, like, the subway, like, kind of fight scene was pretty good.
Yeah.
When Magneto's powers, like, that was done really well. Like, it made him feel bigger and more important than in some of the other movies. But yeah, I mean, like I said, this is, and like we said, this is the worst movie in the franchise.
Yeah, I think the VFX stuff looked
good. VFX were good.
Yeah, everything there was solid.
The Phoenix looked cool. We had Dazzler.
Yeah, and I thought some of the fight in the street and into the hotel lobby or whatever, some of that stuff looked pretty good too when it spilled out there.
Yeah. Jessica Chastain is one of my favorite actresses, so I like to see her in things.
Yeah, not a great use of her, but
no,
I don't think she did anything wrong.
No. Yeah, and this movie has way more Oscar-nominated actors than it should.
It's true. It's a true point. I do also, I mean, like, I sort of talked about Xavier's look specifically, but I like the way that everyone looks in this, where I think that's one thing with the era of the original series coming out in early 2000s. We obviously talk much about the yellow spandex line and all that, but like that was a time when everyone's going to wear black. You don't really get like everybody has to look cool and therefore monochromatic and therefore not that interesting. It's all the Stone Cold Steve Austin-ization of everyone's outfits. Everyone, just kind of looks the same.
It's the Matrix effect.
It's the Matrix effect. That was all very cool in the late 90s.
Cool as shit, yeah.
Early 2000s. I say as I'm wearing a black t-shirt right now. So I never changed. But
no,
I like how much color is in the uniforms and the looks of these people. Even the wheelchair is really, it's not like the yellow floating wheelchair, but it's pretty colorful. Like we're getting closer to comic book X-Men in the way that everybody looks in this, and I enjoy that.
I like the way this movie looked. I like the way the X-Men looked. But one of the comments I made to you when we were watching it was that this movie is shot and lit and edited like a fun superhero romp, and it isn't.
No, tonally it's a mess. If you were actually paying attention to what's happening, it's a nightmare and none of it makes any sense. But if you devoid yourself from the context of the story, it looks really nice.
Yeah. Like if you like have it on mute while you're folding laundry, you might be tricked into thinking this is an interesting movie. It ain't, but
if you just played the X-Men animated series cartoon theme song over and over and over again, I think that would be good.
Honest, that's it's the best cartoon theme song.
And also, if you ever skip intro when you're watching on Disney Plus, you're a cop.
I don't even know why that button exists for that show.
To find out if you're a cop.
It's to find out if you're a cop.
That's why.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, so we're not fully saying farewell to the X-Men franchise because we're going to watch the forgotten X-Men movie, New Mutants, next week.
Yep, but this is the unfortunate swan song to the not even but like the original continuity that already was in shambles because it already got retconned about halfway through. But like what started in 2000s, which I think you nailed, and I guess is a silver lining in general of like, I was a bigger like Spider-Man guy, but we lived in an era where we got a Spider-Man movie and an X-Men movie very close to each other.
And they're both great. And they're
they
super fun.
Great. And I think we're all still chasing that high of what the aughts superhero movies felt like to experience. And yeah, the X-Men were great. And they did as good of a job as I think they could have done taking those characters and putting them on screen. And we still love them so much that we're all going to go see Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. Like,
do it once more again.
Do it once more again. And this time, Jesus, finally, they better kiss.
Silver Linings Playback is a production of HoboTrashCan.com. If you enjoyed the show, please rate or review it on Apple Podcasts. Hear more great shows on the Peak Sloth Podcast Network.